As the front door opened late in the evening, Jungkook stepped inside the quiet house. He paused, expecting his usual warm welcome from Vine, but instead all he was met with was silence. The house was still, except for the faint sound of toys clinking in the distance. A tiny smile curled on his lips as he closed the door behind them. He wasn't entirely surprised by his welcome. He knew he had screwed up. Running a hand through his hair, he loosened his tie and called out, Jungkook, Fine, I'm home. Where are you? His voice echoed down the hallway, but no response came. Fine. He called again, but nothing happened. Jungkook's smile grew wider. It was cute how she was pretending to ignore him, but he knows she can't do it for long. He strode into the living room where Vine sat on the couch, scrolling through her phone, clearly showing disinterest. Their daughter, Jeon Eunji, was playing with her toys nearby, blissfully unaware of the tension in the air. Jungkook, I came home, Vine. Not even a hug for your hard-working husband? He knelt beside the couch, resting his arms on the cushion beside her. Vine's fingers never left the screen of her phone as she replied, Oh, is the great mafia boss finally home? Her tone was light, but Jungkook caught her playful irritation. He chuckled under his breath, leaning closer, his lips barely an inch from her ear. Jungkook, don't pretend you didn't miss me. Vine shifted, clearly trying to suppress a smile, but she didn't respond. Instead, she stood up and walked to Eunji, picking her up and then swinging her in her arms. Vine, how is my baby girl? She kissed Eunji's chubby cheeks. Jungkook let out a dramatic sigh, standing up. He shoved his hands into his pockets, watching her affectionately. Jungkook, you're mad? Vine, am I? I don't know what you're talking about. Vine raised an eyebrow, but still wouldn't look at him. Jungkook, come on. You have been ignoring me since I walked in. This isn't fair. I missed you so much, he said, walking up behind her as she bounced Eunji in her arms. Vine gave a tiny shrug and said, without looking at him, Maybe I wouldn't have to ignore you if you had remembered your own daughter's birthday, she said in a soft voice, but it was clear she was holding a grudge. Adorable, that is. Jungkook winced, guilt appearing across his face. Jungkook, I know I messed up, but you have to understand I didn't forget. She finally turned to face him, narrowing her eyes. She said, Didn't forget? Really? Because I didn't see you here yesterday when we celebrated Angie's first birthday. Jungkook, I know. He groaned, stepping closer and reaching out to tug on her sleeve like a child seeking forgiveness. Jungkook, it was an important meeting mine, and I didn't even have time to refuse it. But that doesn't mean I forgot about Angie's birthday. She stayed quiet and looked away, though her lips twitched as if she were holding back a laugh. He leaned in closer, her voice dripping low and teasing. Jungkook, you're really going to ignore me all night? Fine, if I have to. Jungkook, okay then. You yourself know that if I don't get your kiss after returning from a tiring day, I go mad. So if you ignore me one more time, I'll kiss you without your permission. Vine gave him a side eye, still pretending not to care. Fine. You think I'm so easy? She shook her head, but Jungkook turned her back from her shoulders to face him. Jungkook stepped right into her space, his lips dangerously close to hers. Jungkook, that's it. Give me attention or I will kiss you. Harshly. He took a step closer, roughly, another step, and forcefully. Her breath hitched slightly as she looked into his lustful eyes. She didn't have time to respond when Jungkook gently cupped her face and planted a soft kiss on her lips. She melted for a split second, then quickly pulled back, trying and failing to stop a giggle. Jungkook, he laughed, wrapping his arms around her waist, pulling her close. Jungkook, see, you missed me. Why? I did not. She protested and tried to pull back, but he was holding her tightly. Angie was still between them in her arms. Jungkook smiled and looked in her eyes. Are you going to stay mad? Wine. I'm not mad. I'm disappointed. I mean, not on you, but how everything turned out. I wish you'd be here. It was her first birthday after all. Jungkook sighed dramatically, placing a hand over his heart. Jungkook, disappointed? That's even worse. I'll make it up to both of you. Promise. He leaned down to kiss Inji's tiny head. Before Vine could respond, he stepped back and reached into his bag, pulling out a small, beautifully decorated birthday cake, which was still fresh. Vine's eyes widened in surprise. Vine, what? Jungkook, I didn't forget. I brought cake for her all the way from Italy, as if it was made specially for her. Vine stared at the cake, speechless for a moment. Then her gaze softened and a small laugh escaped her lips. Vine, you actually remembered? Jungkook, you think I would forget something so important? He pulled her into his arms, his voice turning soft. Jungkook, I'm sorry I wasn't here sooner. Vine, it's not your fault, silly. Jungkook, then why were you ignoring me? Vine smiled and looked away. Forget it. Let's cut the cake now. Jungkook scoffed. So you just wanted attention. And here I was so sad thinking about it. I'm not forgetting it easily, you know. She immediately sat on her knees on the floor, putting the candle on the cake, pretending not to hear him at all. Fine. I'm going to cut it. You don't want to come? Jungkook, answer me first. He stood behind her with his hands on hips. Fine. Okay, I'll cut it down myself. Wait, he said immediately and sat beside her, holding her hand which had the knife in it. Jungkook, this is not fair, you know. Vine didn't look at him and started cutting the cake while they sang the birthday song for her. She rubbed her finger on the cake and then spread it across Inji's cheeks. Inji bambled between them, completely aware of the happiness that was lurking in the environment, making them both laugh.